welcome everybody. Just a couple of quick things. Again, this will be recorded. Going to ask you to hold all of your questions. The way that this is going to work is we're going to hear from 4 of our panelists. They're each going to talk for about 2 minutes, and then we're going to open it up so we've got lots of time for questions and answers. If I could just ask for everyone to keep their selves on mute for now. That would be really helpful just to cut down on any kind of background noise. Again, if you are here and you don't think that I have your email or you would like to be on our email list, please go ahead and send that to me in the chat. We will be sure to share a resource list. I know some of our participants already have a resource list of different links and resources, so we'll make sure we get that out to all of you. And I think that is it, and we're going to get started. And I'm going to start with, let's see. Yeah, anyway, we've got great panelists here today who are lots of experience from, just from road tripping to traveling overseas. We've got those who use manual chairs, those who use power chairs, and I hope that you'll all feel empowered to travel. I know it can feel a little daunting for a lot of people to think about doing it, especially post-injury or especially even after COVID and having been home for a while. So we hope that you'll feel empowered to do this. Okay, Mary Cooper. Mary, I'm gonna go ahead and spotlight you.
Oh no, I have to look at myself. How do I not look at myself? Oh my gosh, can I do this? Okay, sorry. Hi everyone, my name is Mary Cooper. For you guys that don't know me, I'm a T10 complete from a car accident about 21 and a half years ago, and I'm an avid traveler. So if you go to the meetings during the week, you know that I travel a lot. So she asked me to talk about some of the things that I've gone through and experienced for my traveling. And I have to say that I haven't traveled overseas, but that is on my bucket list. I've done a lot of Canada, Hawaii, obviously Florida all the time, Alaska, the Caribbean. So I've done my fair share of different things. I've also taking, I've gone on several cruises, lots of airplanes, rented cars. That was a lot of fun. So I would say I am better than I was when I first started. When I first started, I had lists all over the house of things that I needed to do. And now I've cut that to half the amount of lists. So I'm just gonna give you a couple ideas. I actually have no idea what I'm supposed to say because Heidi didn't tell me. So I'm gonna make it up now. When I first decided that I needed to travel post-injury, is I wanted to go somewhere simple that I knew that at the other end of where I was going was gonna be family members. So my parents were in Florida. It would make sense to go down to Florida. And so that's what I ended up doing, flying out of Manchester. I love Manchester, New Hampshire airport because the fact that it's small, it's easier to talk to the people. They're not in a big rush like Boston. And that's just a personal opinion for me getting through. I need it slower. I have to slow down because otherwise I get myself too excited. So I started in Florida, and then I've gone, and then I had some minor problems with my wheelchair down there, and was able to find actually a place that sold durable medical equipment and able to find a little part, and my father was able to fix it. So part of my planning now is I always make sure that if there's durable places, and you can Google it on any, like whatever your destination is, to say, durable medical supply places in Phoenix, Arizona, and they should come up that should come up on the list if you feel that you're worried about your wheelchair. I just want to throw that in. My suggestion is to start small. If you don't want to go to Florida, try going to Boston overnight, or just do something, a day drive, spend the night, and then come home. Especially for the first time, you just start small. And I know everyone talks about hotel rooms. They're totally different from 20 years ago to now. The beds are higher. You have to make some phone calls on that. I did include, and I gave it to Heidi, a list of airlines and rent-a-cars. A lot of them now have disability numbers. so that you could actually physically call the disability people and they can help you find what you are find what you need, especially the cruise lines, because you really want to look at those rooms and stuff. Am I going too fast, Heidi?
You're perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
if I am, so someone let me know, because I do go fast and I hopefully won't jump around that badly. So hotel rooms, you need to call. I know that people, first of all, let me say that some people have used travel agents. I have not had good luck with travel agents, and I prefer type A personality to make the phone calls myself. And I actually will call Hilton, wherever it is, and very, very specific. I don't say handicap accessible. I say wheelchair accessible. I say roll and shower, lowered bed. Those, you need to say those words. And if they don't know, they will get back to you. And if they don't say that, say, I need you to call me back and tell me what I need for information. And usually they do. I don't think they've ever not called me back. They want your money. And one time I did have, they gave my room away, and then I went into another room and they comped me a room. So if that happens, even though it's a little stressful, I still was able to get a room and got it for free. So just keep that in mind. Be nice. And it's hard not to swear sometimes. Don't swear. So, and also anytime you want to talk to these people, get their name. I always keep a running pad of paper before I go, and then you know who you spoke to, and they can, they can say, well, I spoke to Joe Schmo before. I would like to talk to him again. And then for me, for airlines, I do everything online now. Before I used to call. A lot of people let them know that you're in a wheelchair. I, believe it or not, let go of that whole thing. And I just show up in my wheelchair, because it's not going to change their day. They don't look at their itinerary for the day and go, oh, we have 6 flights going out and 8 wheelchairs. Nobody knows until someone shows up. But when I get there early enough that I get my wheelchair gate checked, and I get all this. They have to look at your chair to make sure anything's whatever, if there's any problems with it. So, and I did include airline numbers for you guys. I personally like Southwest. I know people like JetBlue. I'm not familiar with the other ones as much, but it's what you're comfortable traveling on and stuff. So, and then I'm trying to think what else. I also want to just say that when you're packing, I'm going into packing pre-going. Make lists. I always bring extra meds. I always bring chucks with me. I always bring a shower chair. I bring trash bags because I'm grossed about the poop stuff. I bring extra clothing. I do have a smart drive on my thing, so I'll bring the chargers. I pack everything up, and things I do carry on, and some things I actually check through. I've never had a problem with that. I also, if there's any doctors here, close your ears. I will contact my primary, and I have a tendency to get UTIs. If I'm starting to feel like I'm getting one, I've contacted my doctor and got a prescription for antibiotic that I've noticed worked in the past. This is my personal thing. It's not what everyone should be doing, but you guys know your bodies. And I like to be proactive on it in case I don't feel well. Tylenol, Tums, Imodium, all that stuff, just carry it on. So, have I done my 10 minutes? I could travel, I could talk forever.
You're good. Mary, that's a great point though, about being proactive about any type of antibiotic that you think you might need.
Yeah, I do. I probably have expired ones that I bring that I shouldn't. Nope, don't listen to that one either. So, and so what if I pass it on to the next person? And
yeah, I want to ask you, Mary, you and I have had a few conversations about kind of expectations. I wonder if you could just speak about that.
Yeah, I just think that I'm a type A, so I'm always have to be in control. So this is the least amount of control you're going to ever have, is going on a trip until you've done it. I take your time, and getting upset is not going to get you anywhere when things go wrong. I've had they checked my wheelchair through once, so we were stopping Atlanta. There was no wheelchair for me to transfer in, so I was sitting on the aisle chair. Now, which is like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. No, it's not. Someone actually just pulled me through to the next thing, and I just got out of doing 2 transfers. you know, you got to let it go. And it's really hard when you're first traveling. You just need to, I mean, I was very nervous. I traveled once by myself and I was incredibly nervous, but I made it. And I just think that if you plan, you ask questions, and I don't want to say you act dumb, but just ask questions, and people really want to help you. I found in all the travels I've done. So I think that's what we've talked about. It's easy to get upset. It's easy, so easy to get upset, but you just need to, if your plane gets canceled, that has not happened to me, but if your plane gets canceled, it's like, okay, and they see you in a wheelchair, I think they're going to go out of their way to help you more than a person that's walking and jumping up and down and causing this big stink. Those are the people they tend to ignore and not help as well. We just need, you know, to put your smile on, suck it up, and be friendly. And it's hard. It's hard. So.
Thanks, Mary.
Yep.
So again, we're going to hold questions till the end. If you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat, so we'll make sure that we get to it. And also when we do get to Q&A, you can use the hand raise function or just raise your hand and we'll make sure that we call on you. So, all right, thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to Obi Harrington House right now. And I'm going to find Obi here and highlight him. All right, Obi, you all set?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right.
Okay.
Go for it.
Good morning. I'm Obi Harrington House. I'm the new chapter coordinator for the Greater Boston chapter. I've been injured 25 years and I am a C7 complete. And I was very fortunate when I was first injured. I was working for Chase Manhattan Bank and they very nicely said, just get better and come back. And I did. And the group I worked with was starting to do offsites. And we were doing, the first offsite I think we did was in Chicago. And that wasn't a big deal, but the second one was in London. And at that point, I started to say, maybe I should think about traveling. And well, actually, the London trip caused me to start thinking about it. And the second trip they did a year later was to Paris. And that was, like my wife said, she'd divorce me if I didn't go. And I'm glad she said that. But first of all, I wanted to talk about Mary's point about bringing antibiotics. 7 Cipro can save your life. I was in Ireland. I started feeling really crappy. And, you know, thank God I brought some Cipro with me. You can't, you know, you can't, if you think you're going to need something, bring it. I mean, we travel with a suitcase that's probably 4 feet high by, 2 feet wide, and along with a commode chair that, folds up. Make sure you have it. I used to keep my suitcase, all the traveling supplies I need. I don't unpack usually at the end. I keep a full set of everything in the suitcase. But I use a power chair, and they let me gate check it. So you actually stay in your chair right up. You go down the jetway in your chair, and when you get to the door of the plane, 2 people will come out. Well, they have to request lifting help. And sometimes it's 2 people, sometimes it's 4 or 6 people. You never know what you're going to get. But people will physically transfer me from my chair to the aisle chair. And if those of you who don't know what an aisle chair is, the center aisle of a plane is just about 1 human wide. And so it's like a hand truck with a seat on it. And they strap you to it. They, belt your legs in, and they tell you to hold your arms, or you sort of hug yourself so you don't shatter your elbows. And then they drag you backwards down the aisle until And when you're making your reservation, when you talk to the airline, and you really need to call through, because what they don't book the bulkhead seats in the planes, those are all available at check-in. But if you say, look, I'm in a chair and I'm traveling with a companion and we need the extra room that the bulkhead affords, they'll make a note and they'll seat you in the bulkhead when you get there. And that's important, because if you've got it, like, you know, if you're on a transcontinental flight for 6 hours, somebody's going to need to empty your leg bag. And that means getting down on the floor, and you can't, it's almost impossible in a regular seat. Another tip is when you make your hotel reservations, talk to the concierge, because if you need to make arrangements for a health aide, or if you need to make arrangements for just the getting to and from the airport, a lot of times the concierge, especially if you're dealing internationally, the concierge typically speak English, and they can make arrangements for health aides and for the accessible transportation, because that's not always a given. The place that I traveled to, I've been to Istanbul, I've been to Zurich, I've been to Paris a couple of times, I've been to Dublin, England, and then a lot of domestic, Chicago, Houston, San Francisco, Florida, I think once. I did a lot of traveling, and to sort of use one of Mary's points, my mantra when I fly is keep your expectations low so you're never disappointed. Because you've got to be patient doing any kind of airline travel, especially these days. I don't know if you saw the news last night about all the canceled or the delayed flights, but it was a horror show. Let me think, other things.
Obi, do you have anything that you want to say about traveling with a power chair, especially on an airplane?
Oh, absolutely. I have an 8.5 by 11 laminated sheet that we put on the wheelchair when they take it away, and I take the leg rests off if they're detachable, or in my Permobile we just flip them up. But take anything that might fall off the chair in transit. I also take a bag and put it over the controls, because they want to drive it. They don't want to push it. And I have just a little plea I put on the chair that says, look, this is like my legs. This is my transportation. Don't screw around with it. Don't try to drive it. It'll unlock and lock down by the motors. And I show them where the locks are on the wheels. Let me think, the other thing, you've got to, and show them where the lift points are on the chair, because they want to lift it by the armrest, which we all know doesn't pay dividends. That's usually a fool's errand. But do as much research as you can. Rick Steves has a book that you can get about accessible travel in Europe. And it says, like, if you're in a wheelchair, you don't need to pay admission to like any museums. I was in Paris and trying to get into there's an Impressionist museum called the Musée d'Orsay, which has all like the water lilies and a lot of really beautiful paintings. And we're waiting. I didn't realize it. And we're waiting online. And these two guards came running out across the plaza, said, no, 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 no. And they just escorted me inside, much to everybody in the line's dismay. But so that, there are some advantages sometimes to being in a wheelchair, especially if there's really long lines. Let me think. The airline travel itself, I've traveled standby. I would not recommend it because standby means you're the last person on the plane. And I've been dragged all the way to the back of the plane and put in a regular seat, and it's miserable. But I only was traveling standby because my son was working for the airline, so it was free. But and what else? Airline flying gets harder and harder because they keep giving you less and less space. And so make sure requesting to be seated in the bulkhead is key. You may not have a movie screen in front of you, but I think you'll live. And frankly, if you can afford it, to stay in a more upscale hotel where the concierge is going to be more helpful. Your rooms are going to be more comfortable. So anything you can do to get a deal in an international chain, they're always going to be better. We tried to stay in a hotel in the Latin Quarter in Paris, and they said, oh yeah, the place is accessible. We got there, there was one step, it was on a sidewalk. My wife ended up having to make a ramp. She literally went to a hardware store where they sold her lumber. They were able to cut it to size. And my wife does architectural design, so she is a little bit handy that way, but she made a ramp that we ended up leaving with the hotel. But, so it's really staying in like one-off hotels can be really dodgy because you don't know what you're going to get. And a lot of times they'll tell you anything to get you to book the room. But travel can be a lot of fun. And Heidi, you were going to say.
No, I was going to say, no, this is great. And there's a lot of questions that are coming in into the chat, which we'll get to afterwards. So that was great. We'll move along.
Somebody's
great questions.
Somebody's asking about transfers. I use just a slide board. So my transfers from the chair to the bed are relatively easy for me. Anybody, I'm a C7. And I understand traveling Hoyers. I know you can get Hoyer lifts that are, that fold up into a travel size, but I haven't had to deal with that.
All right. Obi, thank you. We'll get to all the questions afterwards, but
okay,
I'm gonna thank
on.
you. Yeah, great. I'm gonna move to Michaela right now. Michaela Devins, where are you? Hi.
Good morning, everybody. I'm C4, C5 incomplete. I've been injured for almost 12 years on July 4th. So it's been a while. And in that time, my husband and I we've traveled around the US and Canada. We've done road trips. We've traveled by flying. So we've also done Amtrak. So I have quite a bit of experience, at least, here in the US. We're actually currently planning a trip to Ireland in September. So I'm very excited. And part of the preparations for that, for any trip really, is that I'm very meticulous about contacting places, contacting people, contacting airlines. I like Mary and I'm so sorry, Obi?
Obi.
Obi, okay. Like they said, it's really, calling places, asking questions, asking very specifically for what you need. I've also used Airbnb quite a bit. And that's like, that is a little bit hit or miss, to be honest. But by contacting the hosts and being really specific, and even usually asking to schedule a phone call with them and just like be very upfront about like, these are my needs. I saw that you've listed that your apartment, your condo, your home, whatever, is wheelchair accessible. Let's talk exactly about what that means and what I need. And if it doesn't work out, I cancel the reservation and no harm done. I've also traveled with my service dog on flights, on trains, and doing road trips. So if anyone has questions about traveling with a service dog, I have some experience with that. But I would love to kind of talk a lot about the air travel, because that's what I have found to be the most challenging. Amtrak is super easy. They have red cap services where they will literally escort you from train to train. They help you with your luggage. There's you sit in your chair on the train. There's no transferring. Their bathrooms are big enough for me, my husband, or a care attendant, and my service dog to all squeeze in together, which on a train I think is miraculous, to be honest. So I have found traveling, like on Amtrak, to be really lovely, actually. And road trips are easy because you really have so much control over when you stop, where you go, the pace that you take. Yeah, airlines are very challenging, I think, especially for power wheelchair users. I've had good and bad experiences. Some of the bad ones are that sometimes the folks that are meant to transfer you, like to the aisle seat, like Obi was talking about, and then to your chair on the plane, are not trained very well. And I have been jostled. I mean, there was one time, I don't know what they did, but my neck hurt for days. So I have become, I'm polite, but I've become very assertive and saying like, this is exactly what I need you to do, and this is how I need you to do it. And don't touch me until you've listened to what I have to say. Because they're in a rush, they want to get going, they want to make sure everyone can get on the plane. I'm like, no, I need you to stop. I need you to listen. So I've become very assertive in that way, which is not typically in my nature. But I think, when you're in a position like this as a wheelchair user, you have to learn how to become a really fierce advocate for yourself. And that's a hard thing to do. But I have found better luck with that when I'm able to say, this is how I need you to lift me. And it's different for everyone, right? So, but yeah, I won't allow them to start until I feel comfortable that they understand what needs to be done. As far as the power chair is concerned, I have had my chair damaged. Thankfully, it wasn't anything so serious, but if you forget anything else that I say, remember this. If you travel on an airline and when you get off at the other end, your chair is damaged, do not leave the airport until you file a claim. Because if you leave the airport and then try to file a claim afterward, they won't do it. They'll be like, oh, well, we don't know that actually happened in transit or on our flight. So make sure you file a claim before you leave. Go ask for supervisor upon supervisor upon supervisor, if that's what it takes, to make sure that you file that claim, because then they will pay for the damages. Otherwise, you're out of luck. So we flew, this is what happened with me. We flew from Philadelphia to Seattle. And when we got to Seattle, the left armrest of my chair was swinging down by the wheels. And it was clearly broken. It was like 1 a.m. We were exhausted. We wanted to go to our hotel. But we waited. They were trying to find someone that would fix it right then and there. No one knew what to do with a power chair. And I was like, I just want to file a claim to make sure that you fix this, and I want to go. So that we finally did that, and we were driving up to Vancouver. So unfortunately, I had to be very careful because I had no support and armrest on my left side for I think about a day and a half. But they contacted someone at like a medical provider. I can't think of someone who fixes wheelchairs. I'm not thinking of the phrase right now, but they sent someone to us in Vancouver when we got there who fixed the armrest. So that was, it all ended up well. The rest of the week that we were there, I had my chair in good working order. But yeah, and that was something that they even said on the phone afterward when they were calling to set up someone to come out to meet me in Vancouver, was that, it's really good that you filed this claim before you left the airport. Otherwise, I don't think they would have done this. And I was like, yeah, I kind of got that impression. So that's really important. I think we all know it can be an excruciating process to get insurance to pay for the chair that you need. And so if you are able to buy a secondary or backup chair, I found one on Craigslist, I think for $2,000. It doesn't fit me perfectly. It's not made for me, but it's a good chair and I can be in it for a week, and it's fine. I would much rather risk that and damaging that beyond repair than the chair that I use every single day as my means of independence. So if that's possible, I highly recommend that, because I'd much rather damage a backup that I paid $1,000 or $2,000 for versus what insurance covered for 40,000. That if it gets damaged, it's going to disrupt my entire life. So I have found that to be at least reduce my anxiety about air travel and give me some peace of mind when I go. That's kind of, I don't know. I can certainly go on about all kinds of things, but I don't know.
Yeah, Michaela, that was awesome. And great point about great advice about filing a claim before you leave the airport. And secondly, about if it's possible to travel with a backup chair, and I know it may not be for everybody, but if it is, it's a great idea and probably relieves a lot of stress and anxiety.
So much stress. Yeah. And again, I just kind of scoured Craigslist, and there's like disability exchange groups, like buy and sell groups on Facebook and stuff. So it's amazing what you can find. But I mean, it did take me, I was searching for months before I found someone willing to, that had a power chair that they wanted to just kind of get rid of.
Great, thanks. Michaela, we'll have lots of questions that we'll need you to answer afterwards. So thank you. And we're gonna move to Eric Kondo right now. Eric.
All right.
Hi.
Hi. Lots of great advice from all sorts of people. So I'll try not to repeat what people have already said. But I think one of the underlying themes here is preparation and thinking ahead, what might happen, and how you can deal with it if it does happen. And those things are going to be very different for every individual. I'm going to say that I take much more of a minimalist approach to traveling. I don't really do a lot of calling around. I pretty much, well, first of all, I'm going to introduce myself as I'm a T4 5 para for about 37 years. And during that time, you know, given it's been 37 years, I've actually probably traveled a fair amount. I've traveled to Europe, to Asia, all around the United States, sometimes with family, a lot of times by myself. So lots of different versions. I've taken trains in the US, taken trains in Europe, buses. Actually, I've also been to Venezuela. So kind of have a medley of traveling experience. But what works for me is not necessarily going to work for other people, because I have a relatively good degree of wheelchair mobility. And because of that, I'm able to make a lot of situations work. But one of the things that I think is really important for traveling for myself is really being mobile, and that means being able to carry my luggage. So to me, particularly if I'm traveling alone, I have a method to travel my luggage that enables me to, you know, if I go to the airport and then I'm going to fly in, let's say I'm not going to rent a car, let's say that I'm going to get on the subway or I'm going to go through the city or whatever it is, I need to be mobile. And to me, that means I can't carry hard luggage. Now, I know that there are some, you know, you can get hard luggage with wheels on it that you can attach behind your chair and drag it around. I've never used that. Honestly, I questioned its utility in a you know, a European city where you're really moving around quite a bit. I think I've seen lots of videos of where it works great in the airport, but an airport is a pretty nice environment. So to me, I need to carry my stuff in multiple bags, and so I set it up on my chair. So for instance, you know, I'll use soft bags and I'll use multiple ones. So I'll have a knapsack on the back of my chair, and then I might strap another knapsack on the front of my chair, and to counter it. So I'm counteracting the weight. Got weight on the back, I got weight on the front, and then I'll put a third one in my lap. And then all these will be bungeed down. So in this scenario, I can be pretty mobile. I have distributed my weight so that I don't have too much on the front, don't have too much on the back. And that since I'm bunging it down, it doesn't fall off. What I do is also to avoid multiple bag fees, I'm going to take a giant like hockey bag, and when I get to the airport, everything goes in the giant bag. And then when I get, you know, to baggage claim, I take out of the giant bag and I redistribute it for myself. So that gives me a lot of flexibility. So to me, once again, you're going to be, the more you understand your own mobility in your everyday world, the better off you're going to be going somewhere else. You know, lots of people have talked about airline travel. You know, airline, good example. Last weekend, I had a wedding to go to in DC. I went to Portland because after my, I went to Portland because directly after the Portland, Maine, after the wedding, I needed to drive somewhere. Drove up to Portland and got there, and they said, "Oh, Eric, your flight is canceled. The next flight is out of Boston." And I literally just drove from Boston. So, but I needed to leave my car in Portland. So I left my car in Portland and then had to go take an Uber to the train, to the bus station, and then take the bus back to Portland. Excuse me, back to Logan, and then take my flight. My point is, this worked, it was fine, but that's because I was mobile with my gear. If I wasn't mobile with my gear, then that would have been a difficult experience. So to me, I try to make sure that I don't get in a situation where I'm going to have to depend on a lot of other people because we all know that you can't necessarily depend on other people. That's my personal philosophy. Sometimes if you're traveling with a lot of equipment, like sports equipment, it's important to recognize that if it is considered adaptive equipment, you can fly for free. That equipment can fly for free. Now that's a big deal. Let's say you're going with a hand cycle or an off-road hand cycle or whatever it might be. These are ordinarily this is a pretty big bulky piece of equipment. But again, if you label it as adaptive equipment or adaptive medical equipment, if you have to, then it flies for free. Same thing with, a lot of people have a lot of medical supplies they carry. So you put it all in a bag, and this is your medical supply bag, then you're not going to get necessarily charged. You won't get charged for that. So these are just ways to save a little bit of money if that becomes an issue. Trying to think, as far as rental cars go, I'll go for, as a practical matter, it's my experience that rental car companies don't really want us anyway. There's no one that, to me, that's greater than the other, because I don't really think that they want to put a hand control on a car. So I feel like they all give bad service. But that being said, I will rent the car online first, and I'll get an affordable one, and I'll call them up and tell them I need a hand control. Invariably, they put it in a larger car because they don't want to put it on a small car, but you should still get the economy car rate. So if you're traveling by yourself and you don't need a larger car, then that's that. Well, I guess what I'm saying is you should get the more economical rate by doing it that way. That being said, there is a tendency to put hand controls on giant vehicles like Tahoes. So that happened to me when I flew to San Diego last month. Get there, ordered an economy car. They're like, here, oh, we don't have that, but guess what, Eric, we're upgrading you to a Tahoe. And for those who have, getting in the Tahoe as a wheelchair user, that is a really difficult transfer if you can even do it. So I was like, no, I don't want that. No Tahoe, put it in a vehicle that I can use. Now, I think the point here is that you have to, be firm. And I think somebody else mentioned that you always need to be firm. Tell them what you want. Tell them nicely, but you got to be assertive, because otherwise they're going to, whatever company you're dealing with is going to do what's best for them, not necessarily best for you. So trying to think some other issues. Yes, I'm going to agree that it surprises me that for 37 years, every time almost every time I use an aisle chair, it seems like nobody knows what's going on. They're always a trainee there. I'm like, how is it that 37 years ago, in 1984, the process is exactly the same in 2022? You would have thought that someone would have come up with a better system. Apparently, they haven't. So to me, that is always surprising. But I think it is important that, again, you're directing people when they try, if you need help with a transfer, tell them what to do. Tell them what not to do. If you don't need help with a transfer, tell them what not to do. They're going to make a tremendous amount of assumptions about what you can and cannot do, and you have to verbally clarify that for them. So those are my main thoughts. How are we doing for time, Heidi? I don't know. I've been
Yeah, we're great. You're like it's just about 10 minutes. I mean,
right.
I think, yeah, no, that was excellent. Yeah, definitely like highlighting a lot of the different ways that wheelchair users travel. So I would love to, right now, I'm just going to go back to a gallery view here, and we're going to just go over to the questions. Sorry, I'm just going to unpin you, Eric, just so I can, okay. All right. So we've got a lot of really great questions here. So I'm just going to kind of go up to the top. So we have a question here, and any of you can answer it because I know people do lots of different things. A big question people have is, have you ever taken a longer flight and needed to cath? So how do you do it? Do you go to the bathroom? Do you have a blanket on your lap? What's your method for cathing while you're on a flight?
I'm out, I have an SP tube, so they just empty my bag, that's all.
I also have an SPT tube, but something that I do, like for 12 hours before I fly, I will reduce or like limit my water intake. I just don't have a lot of fluids, which is not great, but I try to make up for it by like really hydrating once I land. But that can help to sort of reduce the possibility of incontinence while you're flying. I know also some people will like wear Depends for a flight. It's not like, you know, if you're not used to wearing them, it's probably not ideal, but it also could give you some peace of mind.
Yep. I just bring an extra water bottle that we can always empty out to use to empty my my bag, that's all.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I always sit, I'm gonna get a window seat every time that I can make that possible. And if I have to, yeah, I use the external leg bag, then I'm gonna bring if it's a really long flight, then I'm gonna bring a water bottle and I'm just gonna empty it and I'm just gonna use the blanket or whatever. And particularly if it's at nighttime, nobody's gonna know. And honestly, I don't really care. So
Right.
I think that solves a lot of problems.
And I actually, when I used to cath, I used to actually cath into a bag, and I would put a blanket over my lap or my pillow because it's dark, nobody can see anything. And I would cath, and usually my daughter was with me, and she'd go take it and empty it in the bathroom. So that, I mean, that's the only way, and that's my on any long flights. And what someone who was saying I decreased my water also, and I've worn Depends. I've done everything when I was really nervous, so I layer up all this stuff, but you have to figure out what's best for you and read your body.
I've also enlisted the help of flight attendants, like to help give me some privacy. Like if like when I was flying with my mom one time, we weren't. It was daylight. It felt a little uncomfortable. We just asked them to kind of hold up a blanket between us and like the rest of the aisle, and they were more than happy to do that.
Has anyone been able to, I don't even think the aisle chair is on the flight, but has anyone ever been able to get to the lavatory on the flight?
The lavatories are not accessible.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I didn't know.
But I have,
Oh,
Alejandro,
yeah, I was just coming back from the bathroom. So I know for a fact that JetBlue has an aisle chair on the plane, and if you request them that you need to go, they'll set it up for you so you can go, and they'll block the bathroom that you're using so no one can see if you need to keep the door open. But that's just at JetBlue. So, and also I can walk if I can hold myself from like in the middle of the aisle. I can support myself and I can kind of walk. So if I'm with someone, we'll do that normally, but I also limit my intake, and I've also done Depends. You might not, I won't be able to go.
great.
I'm pretty sure that all the planes have an aisle chair. I mean, it's a traveling aisle chair. It's even worse than the ones that we typically use. They have it stored somewhere.
Yeah.
I think I've probably used it once, and the bathroom is, it's a huge gymnastic experience. So if you can avoid it at all, that would be my suggestion. But I do believe that they're available in case of emergency.
Great. Thank you. Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a SPT tube too, and I always bring an empty water bottle to empty it into if I have to. And also, when traveling, I always wear Depends. You never know when the tube's going to get creased in the groin of your leg or something. It's always nice to have that on, just in case you have an accident. It's good to be able to stay dry. So it's a backup.
Thanks, Linda. Pam.
Hi. The rule in the United States is that only planes with 2 aisles are required to have a wheelchair on board to get you to the bathroom. And I don't know about you, but I haven't been on a plane with 2 aisles in about 30 years. We just don't have them anymore in the United States. So in other words, you don't know whether there's going to be an aisle chair unless you ask. And most of the time there isn't one. And I've used one once. And what they do is they bring you to the bathroom, but they usually cannot get into the bathroom with the aisle chair. So you have to be able to walk or, jump 3 feet to the toilet. So they're really not, at this point in time, they're just not accessible for the most part. But I would suggest that if, it's so barbaric that airline flying is not accessible, to get into the bathroom. Certainly nobody able-bodied would put up with that. So if you really want to do something about it, it's really good to get involved with writing letters to your, people in Congress. It's the only way we're going to get this fixed. It's going to take a long time, but in the meantime, we just have to wear our Depends and try not to drink too much.
Pam, if you want to drop anything in the chat, a link, I know that there's some advocacy groups that are working specifically on the airline travel. So please feel free to do that for anyone who might want to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Air Carrier Access Act.
Thank you. Thank you, Michaela.
Yeah. And I know I've seen online a number of manual wheelchair users have had really good luck having them stow their wheelchair in like a storage thing on the flight itself. And that is like Code of Federal Regulations 382.67. I don't have a link.
But it's got to be a folding chair, Michaela. It has to be folding. It can't be a rigid.
No, I think I've seen folks with rigid chairs too on Instagram.
Really? Because I was on there
Yeah.
and they did folding, not rigid.
Mhm.
So maybe it's the airline.
If you've got a folding chair and you want to put your chair in the closet, they cannot refuse you. It is
Exactly.
against the law to refuse you. So, but you do have to be sort of the front of the line and let them know that you want that before they, put all their, even the flight attendants often put their own stuff in those closets.
They have
And
to remove that stuff, though.
they love to tell you that, oh, I'm sorry, the flight attendants have this. You have to say to them, it doesn't matter, you have to remove it.
Yeah,
So-
the regulations are very clear that whatever's in there has to be removed to make room for the chair.
And if they continue to fight you on that, you can ask for, I forget what they call them.
Conflict resolution officer, CRO.
Yes, and there is one in every single airport.
Yeah.
And you say, this flight will not take off until I speak to that person. Those people are supposed to come to you immediately if there's a problem. And the flight is not allowed to take off until this is, squared away. So this is the law. So you've got it on your side. And a good thing to do, what I do is I print out the law and carry it with me in my pocketbook, so that if I have trouble with it, I just whip it out and I say, here's the law right here.
I've seen people print it out and also start recording with their phone, like when it starts to turn into an argument. As soon as you start pulling out a recording, people are suddenly very like, oh, no, you don't need to do that. Like, so, I mean, it's a shame that you have to get to that point and be that pushy, but it is federal regulation. So.
And the other thing is, just briefly, is if you do have a problem with an airline, if they damage your chair or whatever it is, you have to write a letter to the DOJ, Department of Justice, or is it? No, it's Department of Transportation, I guess. I think it's Department of Transportation. the Department of Transportation has to follow up with this complaint. So it's really important to write a letter to them, as well as let the airlines know.
I mean, if you have the bandwidth, like not everyone has the time or energy. No, I mean, I think your point is a good one, but
I mean, even if you don't go into a lot of detail and write a long letter, even if you just say, I had a problem, my wheelchair was broken, I need you to know this. Even something simple like that helps, because the more letters they get, the more they know.
Great. And I know that I have a document, and if anyone could maybe has it at their fingers, but I'll include it in all the information with the FDA regulations. So you could, if you're looking to if you want to read through it or you want to print something out. That is called, it sounded like Michaela was reading from something from that. So Michaela, if you can, and you want to put it in the chat, please do. If not, I'll get it afterwards.
I don't have the link, but it's 382.67.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, if anyone does have the link, if they want to drop it in the chat, that would be great. Okay.
Hey, Heidi,
Yes,
could I make a couple more points about
please.
international travel in power chairs?
Yes.
First of all, some international airlines will want to open your battery box. Just check on what kind of batteries they are. Even though all wheelchairs have gel cell batteries, they're worried about batteries that can spill and cause problems on the plane. What I recommend is that you get from either your local durable medical equipment dealer or whomever you get your batteries from, get the paperwork that describes the battery. So it'll just say that they're, class whatever batteries, and that they're gel cell, they're not liquid cells. And because I've had airlines domestically open the battery box, and one time they severed the lead. So when I got to my destination, my chair was just out of luck. And the other thing about power chairs is if you go to Europe or any country, European country, there's different current. And you've either got to get a step down charger. I've blown up 2 battery chargers, and it really smells awful. You almost have to change rooms after you blow up the battery charger because it's a lot of smoke. But so find out what the current is in the country you're going to. I actually own a battery charger that we had to buy in Paris, which is all set up for the European current. But you're going to need voltage converters for almost, I don't think you need it for your cell phone anymore, but you need it for if you want to charge a razor, anything, you're going to need a power converter. But to do a chair, you need what they call a step down. It's a piece of equipment. It's just another thing you have to pack too. And it's bulk, or sometimes you can request it from the concierge. But check that in advance, because it can be your power chair runs out. I found in Paris that by 3 o'clock my chair was going to be out of juice, and I was just about out of juice by 3 o'clock anyway. So it's a good time. I'd have my family push me back to the hotel, and I charged for a while they did whatever they wanted to do. And last thing, domestically, I've rented vans from Wheelchair Getaways. They're great. They'll meet you at the airport. It's not cheap. It's like $100 and something a day to rent the van, and then there's at least $100 charge to a pickup and delivery charge. So that can get pricey. But if you're in a power chair especially, and you need a van, They're not in every state. So I would make that a real early call when you're starting to do your travel plans. Call Wheelchair Getaways, because they run out a lot of, they just run out of vans. And they might have to make a special trip to get it to your airport. Because I know like Arizona, and I couldn't get one in Arizona one time. And check cities, if you're going to cities like Utah, Salt Lake City has a great light rail system, and they have a bus service from the airport, which is awesome. And then once you're in the city, you can use the light rail system to get around. And then I might transfer in a car if we want to go up away from the city. But I was just looking at some of the questions. So.
Yeah, thank
When
you.
we rented vans before, we used Wheeler's accessible van rentals.
Oh, okay.
And like, it's never necessarily cheap to rent a van, but we found them to be reasonable compared to others. And then, yeah, some cities have great public transportation. Like when we were in San Francisco, we took the BART, the Bay Area Rail Transit, and that was surprisingly good. And then there's more and more accessible Lyft and Uber options. You kind of have to look to see how big the fleet is, in the given city that you're going to. I know like Philadelphia has a ton of accessible Lyft and Uber. You can get one pretty much anytime, anywhere in the city. But like other cities, it's not expanded quite so much. So that's worth kind of looking into depending on your destination as well.
Okay. I'm just going to move to a question here. Thank you. Is it possible to bring your cushion seat to add to a regular plane, or do they have a special seat for someone who's in a wheelchair? Alexandra kindly answered it, but so yeah, did anyone want to take this? Anyone take their, I think many people regardless take their wheelchair cushion.
Especially if you have a row and you don't want it punctured. But I've never, because usually my cushions are bigger than the seat. So it's kind of doesn't really work that way. I know people who will bring gel cushion, gel pads with them, the kind that they have at like rehab.
Okay.
But
yeah, so that's great. So anyone else have other ways that other cushions that they bring to sit on a flight? Linda, do you want to?
Oh,
They actually made me take mine with me. Anything that came off the chair, they
Yeah.
wanted me to take with me and store up in the overhead. So you can just, take the Velcro your cushion off and use it if you'd like, or store it. But they had me take the pedals off. I have had a broken armrest by them. And luckily I could still drive it in my lap with it in my lap. And they did send someone to my house to fix it. The other thing I wanted to tell you about transferring, I have what I put under my butt is I have a square, it's a nylon, but it's like a canvas nylon, and it's got two handles on each side. And what they do then, I learned it through them trying to pick me up under my arms and killing me. They can just grab one person on one side, one on the other, lift that canvas up and just slide me into a seat. So
great
that
idea.
works wonderful. I think it was from my old, like when I was transferred by the airlines down from Canada to here, they had like this big nylon, what would it be, like a transfer cot? And they sent it home with me. So I cut it into 3 pieces, and I have 2 seat covers now that I just use the handles that they use for that to put under my chair. When I go rowing, I put that under too, and they just put me from my chair over to the rower. It works terrific. So if anybody has that, just cut that down and use it to a transfer because I don't slide board easy. My arms aren't long enough. And the other thing is on my one flight, I was your first on, last off. I was first on, they put me up on aisle chair 4, row 4. I sat on the end. I had 2 people that didn't speak English that had to walk over my legs, my lap, you know, because my knees were against the back of the seat, had to crawl over me to get in. The plane took off. They had to crawl back over me to get out. They were embarrassed, felt awful. And I just said, you know, it is what it is. And I said, don't worry about it. I'm used to this, you know, and made a joke out of it. But it wasn't fair for the airlines to put me on a seat where someone had to squeeze past me. So be careful when you know, try to get that front seat, like Obi says.
Linda, I've heard of that type of transfer of that before, like some type of, I don't know what it's called. I'm trying to Google it and see what it's called. If anyone knows what it's called, what you're describing to
Like
help
at
with the transfer.
an accident or something, it's a big nylon,
Yeah,
like a sheet, but it's got
Like a
handles
slip,
on it.
like a slip sheet.
No, they just, it's black and it's long nylon and there's handles all along it.
yeah.
So when they moved me from the ambulance to the airplane, they used it as like a lift and they just transferred me. So I cut section off with 4 handles on it so they could just lift and move me. And it's terrific. They also have seats that have a back on them. Same way, they got a hard bottom made of like a cardboard, but they have handles on them and you can lift the back and the front. I gave those to the rowing place too. So if I find them online again, I'll show you. I
Yeah,
think I
those are
actually
great
found them.
Great ideas. I actually just found a bunch of things. There looks like there are many different types. They look like they're fairly inexpensive as well. Many
And
of
I
them.
don't need a backrest. I'll just, you know, someone will stand behind me or I just hold the arms of the people lifting up the things and I can sit upright because I don't have trunk stability.
Great. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, as far as the cushion, like I don't use my cushion in the seat, but I will really every like 20 or 30 minutes, I'll lean all the way forward. I'll lean side to side. Usually it's my husband with me, but really whoever it is, like I have them kind of rub my ankles and feet, move my legs around a little bit. So like if I do that every 20 or 30 minutes through the duration of the flight, I end up feeling a lot better at the end of it than if I don't. So just, you know, if you're able to stretch and move around and weight shift as much as possible, it goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Eric, Ruby?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I put my hand up because we only have about 20 minutes to go. I think I'm the only physician on this call. And I was introduced to spinal cord injury 22 years ago when my son became a T6. And at that point, he said, Dad, I'm not going to listen to doctors. They don't know anything. I will talk to people who have had injuries because they know what they're talking about. This seminar tells me that exactly. I've done now many webinars. Ryan knows all about it. I'm technically very bad at it. And that's why when I wrote you, it's kind of convoluted. But this has been absolutely, I've attended many webinars in the last year or so because now I'm retired. But I've learned more here than I ever learned in any physician seminars. So I thank you for that significantly. I wanted to say that I'm planning a trip, and it's been very anxiety provoking And I wish I had listened to the seminar first, because I don't have any problem compared to what you guys face. More power to you. I mean, it is amazing to hear what you've done. We're about to plan Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Day at the State House. We're going to be doing it virtually again. And this is going to be because of the opening up from the pandemic. I hope we're going to do a lot of the information that you are giving here. There are only 33 participants on this, but I think you're the most active of the people from Greater Boston chapter. But I certainly hope that this becomes, because we do have a larger audience for what I do. We've been doing it now for 18 years. I wanted to address three things particularly. Medications. If you don't have a doctor who will listen to you, get another doctor. You need your medications. I'm taking medications with me on my trip. You know, if you don't have it, if you're not prepared, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. My son calls me from various places, and I still continue with my license so I can get him what he needs, but he is much better off dealing with his own physicians. And for goodness sake, if they're not sympathetic to your needs, get another doctor. As far as that goes, some of the people do take CBD or THC for their pain. You are not allowed to take it from state to state, but you can get it recreationally in other states separately. I would hope that you're careful and not go to Russia. Anyway, the being proactive and not afraid to talk is do it. Absolutely do it. Ethan has a power chair, cost him a lot of money, and it was almost destroyed. Please put information on that power chair. And as far as getting things done, we have Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Day. We have politicians on our side. We now have $5 million for research. I got something done. Be proactive. If they don't hear from you, nothing's going to happen. I'm appalled that it was mentioned that things have not changed from 1984 to now with transfers onto planes. Ethan hates taking planes. It doesn't work well. He's lucky that he has a van and a driver and is able to do things. But it has been a courageous undertaking for him. And again, I applaud all of you, but we need to not complain, but advise and make people aware. And I thank you very much for listening to my comments. And I hope that you will tune in to Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Day. Ryan and Obi and David Estrada. Heidi, thank you very much for letting us utilize your husband's time.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for the feedback too. And I'm
all right.
Okay, this is being recorded as well. So hopefully it will, you know, several people emailed to say they couldn't make it, but they wanted to hear it.
Don't be afraid to talk to the physician and make your points. We want to help you. Okay, enough.
No, it's terrific. And again, anyone who's thinking about, Warren, do you have Warren, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question and I'm a lousy typer for the chat room.
Go right ahead.
I was a big traveler before my injury, but my injury occurred while I was traveling and I was in a foreign city. And with my injury, I ended up in a foreign hospital without family, without friends for 16 weeks in a healthcare system I didn't know, and then another 8 weeks in a rehab hospital and things I didn't know. And what has happened now is I'm extremely emotional when it comes to the idea of traveling again and being someplace and having something happen to me, actually to the point of where I'm almost psychologically paralyzed at the idea of traveling someplace and having something happen to me and being stuck someplace without family and friends to help. It really is debilitating to me, so that when I think about going to all the places that I love to go before, I can't make myself do that. And I'd like to know those people who talk and people who do travel, if they ever experienced any of that and how they overcame that.
Well, I can say from the perspective of a mental health counselor that you experienced a very significant trauma. And so, you know, the mere idea, the reminder of potentially being away from, you know, in the same situation, like that's going to be triggering. That's going to trigger anxiety. That's going to bring up reminders of your experience, right? So you want to kind of, I would suggest that you might try kind of your own sort of exposure therapy. Like, do you still travel within the US? Like that would be a good place to start. And then maybe try Canada, right? Because it's close by, it's very similar to the US. Make sure that you travel with a friend or family member or caregiver so that if something were to happen, you have someone with you that would alleviate one of those sort of those fears that come up. Sort of building up from there, you know, start within a certain radius and build your way out. And as the anxiety comes up, as these trauma reminders come up, building skills to cope with them in the moment, right? So being able to take deep breaths, to find grounding skills, to reframe thoughts about what's happening. And, you know, I think that it's super, super valid considering what you've been through, that would cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of discomfort. So that's a normal response. And I would encourage you to start small and kind of build your way out from there.
Thanks, Michaela.
Hey, Warren, I'd just like to say, I get it. I got injured body surfing and I haven't been back in the water since. The wettest I get is in the shower, but I haven't been swimming.
Thank you. Great advice. And I think Mary also was talking about that, about just starting small. I know some people, maybe they're here I think they're here, just doing an overnight at a nearby hotel and, you know, just trying it out, starting small, feeling comfortable, feeling like if you felt like anything could go wrong or might go wrong, you're close to home, you're close to a hospital, you're close to your trusted doctors. So it's great advice. I wanted just to jump back to, and I know with some of these questions have been answered. Question about adaptive controls on rental cars.
Yeah, I've used Hertz. I know it doesn't have really good luck with them, but I've used Hertz twice in Florida, and without any problems. Actually, one we actually rented and went down and did the keys. I drove all the keys back and forth, and that was a lot of fun. And I, with the hand controls, I did not have any problems, and I wasn't adjusted up like he was saying that. Let's get the Tahoe, because I wouldn't be able to get in that, but they did have the hand controls and they had the suicide knob thing. I had no problems. And there is a disability number for them, Hertz especially, but I know other ones do. And I think you have to call them and feel them out, I guess. But right now isn't there still a shortage of rent-a-cars? So that might be a problem if you're thinking about that in the near future. Just my 2 cents on that.
Regarding hand controls, just for Europe, I've driven in London and also in Malta, and then I brought portable hand controls. Because I think that when you go to Europe, the possibility of finding hand controls goes down dramatically. So if you can use portables, then for European or actually any other part of the world, portable hand controls are probably a good thing to consider.
Thanks, Eric. Let's see, I'm going to go to Michaela in just one moment. I just want to see, I think we kind of covered about like issues, checking your wheelchair, being lost, damaged. Are there, Rob, do you have any further questions about that?
No, I don't, but thanks for asking. I think
Okay.
the chat's been useful. I've got them all answered. Thank you.
Yeah, and it really sounds like a lot of people, again, particularly, you know, when my husband travels, he has a manual chair, a rigid frame. I don't, you know, there's nothing that comes off of it. So it's almost, I don't want to say it's indestructible, but it's not as much of a concern. But I think people that are traveling with power chairs are really concerned, and often have to do a lot of educating to whoever is taking their chair. And there's a lot of bubble wrap and signage and here's my attorney's card and all that, you know. I know that's a real, definitely a concern. Miguelina.
Yes,
Miguelina, we can't really hear you. Would you maybe speak up or?
It's a connection.
oh no.
Yeah, something's with your connection. Can you say it really loudly? Maybe we can try.
Are you able to listen to me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. My question is about the checking at the airport, where because you cannot pass through the machine. They start checking. And at one point I asked even for the room, and those people they put the chains everywhere in my bag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we can't hear you. There's some sort of feedback.
Can
We
you
don't know
type
if
it
it's
in the
the
chat?
connection or the microphone that you're using. There's something wrong. We can't hear anything that you're saying. I don't know if you can type it into the chat. That might be the best way to go.
Yeah, Miguelina, see if you can put it in the chat. Okay, so let's see. There were some other questions about,
There was one about engaging health aides.
yes, I was looking for that one, health aides. And I just want to say we're coming up on 12:30, but if anyone can stay a little bit longer and is able to, if you have more questions, I'm happy to stay. Go ahead, Obi. What was, yeah, the health aides.
I've gotten health aides domestically. And that's a little bit easier because usually I'll start with the, as I said before, the concierge at the hotel, just to maybe get a few names of agencies in the area. A lot of times the visiting nurse is a good place to start. If they can't help you, they'll usually direct you to somebody who does, you know, transient engagements, because they're usually looking for longer term things. But excuse me, it's never been that big a problem. In Europe, I've usually go through the concierge and we'll ask them to do it, or if they can arrange it, or just give me a number. But you know, language being, I'm not a big linguist, so if they don't speak English, I'm SOL. But
Thanks, Obi. Judy.
Hi. First, I just want to say thank you so much. This is a wonderful presentation. I have pages and pages of notes and really look forward to any other materials. My husband and I are thinking about going on a cruise for our wedding anniversary next year. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about how to best prepare for taking a cruise. We've talked a lot about planes and other forms of transportation, which is also really helpful. But is there anything particular to cruises that you might want to help me learn about?
I did do a form, I think Heidi has it, with all the cruise disability numbers, because phone numbers. And when, I would go and Google everything, and I don't know if anyone else I've taken several cruises. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you that I ask questions. I will call the disability. They will help me figure out which room I want. I've used more than one different type of cruise line. But there is a form that you have to fill out. I can't remember the name of it because, and it's, I'll look as I'm talking to you, and you need to fill it out and turn it in before you go, like 60 days. They will tell you. And it's basically that you don't have to tell them what your problem is, but the fact that you might need help.
Okay.
When you get into your room, I've also found that sometimes they put the beds apart and I can't get in between the beds. So I've actually had them, on one of my better days, they took the beds off the floorboard. And they've moved them all around. They've moved around so I could make it the best for me. The people are very helpful moving around the room, because they've always set up for walkers. But even though we're in wheelchairs, you're gonna find that it's not gonna be accessible perfectly. So because my daughter and I sleep next to each other, and plus I can, roll easier instead of rolling off the bed. Getting around, I've done a lot. I've gone on a helicopter when I did Alaska. There's accessible excursions. Ask questions, because I will never go on a helicopter again if it's on a patient, and anything you can. A lot of them really work towards you. This is the United States. You go to other countries, they don't have the ADA laws, so we're sort of, that's a problem. Just be very aware of what you can and can't get for the cruises. I mean, I love Alaska. I thought Hawaii was beautiful, but I loved Alaska. And my favorite place to do use is Disney, because they do everything for you. But if you don't have children, it's a little bit, you can still go to Disney, but I love Disney, but I've used Holland, Norwegian, and is it NCL? And they all treat me the same. I had one problem. Gangplanks are very difficult if the water is low, it's low tide. They put red rugs over everything so you don't see any divots. And my daughter was backing me down, and I was telling her the other day, she was backing me down the gangplank, and I'd asked for help, and they said no, which was the first time that ever happened. And and then there was a divot, and actually went into the divot and flipped out of my chair. So needless to say, and all these passengers, good-looking men, thank God, came up and helped me, but the people that were working didn't. And then I went over and complained. Yeah. And they were kissing my butt for days. And I wasn't being a jerk about it. I'm like, someone should have helped me when I asked. Right. And they were and I'm like, because my daughter was trying to help me, and she's, 15 years old. She knows how to work it. So you just have to really, and if there's a problem, say something. I've also visited the infirmary down because we always worry about getting sick. I had some medical problems, went to the infirmary, and the guy knew a little bit about us wheelchair people, but I was able to walk him through what I felt I needed, and I was able to make it through. So just because we always worry about, oh my God, if I get sick on vacation, what am I going to do? And I've been sick. Just take a deep breath, and you can, ask your questions. If they don't know, they're gonna look, and everything's Googling now. Yeah. I'm sorry if I took up too much time on that. Sorry.
No, I really appreciate it. Truly, that's terrific.
And I just have one more comment. So if you're going on, decide next week, I'm going to go to Hawaii, and I've got all these medical supplies. I have been known on several occasions to put everything in a box and mail it to the hotel. When I mail it, and then I make sure that then I call ahead of time. I do it a few weeks because I'm paranoid. And then I'll call, and they'll have oh yes, we have it in our back room, and it's been there for me when I've gotten there. Just it's one less thing for me to carry. Just so people know, you can do that. I've never had a problem with that. So sorry.
Excellent. Oh, that's great.
How much does that typically
I've gone to
do that?
Judy, I've gone to mostly local cruises, got on in Boston or Philly or something that I could drive to,
Mhm.
because I didn't want to fly. But
Yeah.
anyway, went to the Bermuda and things. They were wonderful. The cruises, once you get on the ship, I took a caregiver with me to help dress me and stuff. But once you get on the ship, you have run of the whole ship. You can go on, everywhere. They even have the lifts to go into the pool. I went swimming. So it's
Wow,
it's all in one place. You have your entertainment, you have your food, you have
right,
everything in one place, and you never have to worry about transportation. If
right.
you want to go on a tour, though, I did pay pretty hefty for a tour of Bermuda, but it was like $400 to rent the van. And if you have people with you, you could have them chip in.
Sure.
But other than that, being on the cruise ship is enough. It's wonderful.
That's what we're thinking about, Linda. We're thinking about Boston to Bermuda. This would be our first time traveling since
Oh, you'll love it.
its injury.
Bermuda is also accessible when you get off the ship. There's a lot of shops and area there. You can go down towards the beach. They have it a wooden platform that gets down pretty close to the beach. So, because I can't go in the sand, so
Right,
you can
right.
still go next to the beach there. It's very good there.
Thank you. You're also helpful. I really appreciate this.
Sorry, so if anybody needs to get going, thank you all for coming. I don't want to keep anybody here because I know we're a little bit over time. Miguelina, and I also, in case our panelists need to go, very, very grateful for Mary, Obi, Eric, and Michaela for sharing their time and expertise and experience with all of us. Miguelina, when you go to the airport and they pat check you, she had a horrible experience. Let's see. Horrible experience because the person touched me everywhere in my body in front of everybody. On the return, I followed all the recommendations and I maybe requested a room for the search. To pull off the shirt, they refused. It's still wow. Miguelina, that's horrible. So I guess your question is, you request a room for the search, pull off the shirt.
They do you can request a room because as a woman, obviously they got to pat you down. Most of the time, if you're a woman, a woman should be doing it. It should not be a man touching you. Bottom line, and if you feel uncomfortable, request the room. I've never had anyone be rude. They're very honest usually. They might ask you to take off your shoes, and my response is yes, you can take off my shoes, but you have to put them back on. And they have never taken off my shoes. They also are going to test your wheelchairs for all kinds of biohazards, and they probably just don't freak out when it comes back that you are testing positive for something. And just explain, I roll through shit. It's on the bottom of everyone else's shoes. And seriously, I've been tested positive for biohazards twice. And once you have a little conversation, they're fine. So hopefully that answers. Elena, that is horrible what happened to you.
I would file a complaint
Yeah, I
about
would
something
too.
like that
Yeah.
because that sounds really not okay at all.
Right.
Egregious.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to add to that. I think that a lot of the TSA is what I call security theater. It's a performance. As a practical matter, I mean, again, we see able-bodied people literally, walking through metal detectors, zoom right through. And, they'll get 100 ABs, within a minute. And they're not checking all the stuff they're checking on us. All of that, the metal detector only picks up metal and not this other stuff. So to me, a lot of this time, the stuff that they're doing, it's like, oh, look how thorough we are. Look, passengers, look how thorough we're even checking these guys in chairs. But to me, I think there's just a lot of security theory going on. So that's just something to keep in mind. I
really like that way.
What's that?
I really like that way of phrasing it. It is. It's security theater.
Yeah, yeah, every time we've gone, we travel, Lyle and I are like, we're like, are they done with you yet, Dave? Like, they've literally like checked every crevice of your body. And of course, they've not looked in the little bag that hangs under your wheelchair, but that's besides the point.
Right. In fact,
You know,
yes,
and I carry a smart drive and they would freak out if they realized that. I mean, you can bring them on the airplanes with you, but I just act like it's part of my wheelchair. I don't offer any more information because it's none of their business. You know, I'm not going to be their best friend ever, but they don't need to know I have a smart drive that comes off of my chair, because they would be testing that for something, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I'm gonna eat that from now on, Eric, though. Thanks for explaining it that way.
I've often found that TSA agents are more reluctant than anything to pat me down. You know, I often thought that the wheelchair was a great device to smuggle drugs with. But I saw a guy got caught the other day though. No, but they're
Yeah.
I'm amazed how little scrutiny I'm put under in those situations. So
Interesting.
that's just me.
I consistently get a very close, maybe I'm more suspicious looking person than you. One thing that I think is really useful for traveling is this acronym PACE, which is primary, auxiliary, contingency, emergency. And if you think about PACE in relationship to, it was designed for communication, but also, mobility, all that stuff. It really will eliminate, it forces you to plan ahead. So most people are like, communication, I got my cell phone, that's all I need. Well, of course, it is until it doesn't work, and then they have no backup plans. So if communication is your primary, then what is your auxiliary, what is your contingency, and what is your emergency? And I think if you go through all that will really help you foresee lots of potential problems.
That's good advice, Eric.
Yeah,
That's great, Eric. I was trying to write it down. Maybe you can send it to me afterwards. It was not quick enough.
I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. Obi, thank you so much. Again,
I have to run, thanks. But
yeah, if anyone has any, and I'm sorry if I didn't get to everything in the chat. I felt like we touched on most of the questions, but appreciate all of the comments and information that people have provided. If anyone, if you're thinking about a trip like Judy, if you're like, I want to plan this and you want to reach out to somebody, let me know and I can help connect you with someone who has had experience, booking cruises and anyone else. If you're, something kind of, something was sort of sparked in your mind and you want to explore it a little bit further, let me know. I'm happy to connect you with any of our, the panelists here or anyone else who has experience. So
thanks a million.
All right, thanks. Good to see you all.
Great to see everybody.
Judy, I would consider also getting, I know probably people are going to disagree and that's fine. Travel insurance. Last year I had a big trip planned and bought the travel insurance, ended up in the hospital 2 days before I was supposed to leave. I was septic. I was going nowhere and I tried to talk them into it. I got all my money back, everything back. And I didn't do it for a few years, but as I'm getting older, I'm making that decision, especially when the trips are getting more expensive. And I'm sure that other people do not, and that is, they don't have my issues. So
thank you so much. Actually, I hadn't thought about that, but I wrote it down and I will do it. Very definitely.
I agree, Mary.
I also
agree.
really like using travel insurance. That's a common argument between my husband and I, because he doesn't think it's worth it. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Last year I got everything back. I was so sick and I was devastated.
Yeah.
So it's
I was in the hospital, Mary, and I was glad I had it. And even my son and daughter-in-law who were going with me, they had the insurance and they were able to get their money back too.
Oh, great. Oh, that's terrific.
When you buy trip insurance, be sure to get one that waives pre-existing medical conditions, or else they will disallow some claims if they trace it back to a prior injury. Most of the major carriers will allow offer that. It costs a little bit more, but you got to have it if you have medical conditions.
Sure, well worth it. Thank you.
I want to say one other thing, Mary, sometimes in the support groups, when people talk about like, how do you, like, what are ways that you stay positive? And Mary often says whenever if she's down or if she has a hospital stay or something, that's when she plans her next trip.
Yeah, I do. I do. When I'm sick, I plan. Like I was sick in October and planned a few things, but like in September, we're going to Baltimore just for 2 nights. Never been to Baltimore. Just to go to a Red Sox game because it's my daughter's birthday. And then my daughter's in November. We're going to after hours they do now. It's a big thing around parks. It's like you open from 6 at night till 2 in the morning, and it's for all the food and stuff like to Universal. So we're going there. My daughter and I are planning that. I mean, I think that as people in wheelchairs, and we've been so close to death, we need to look positive. And when you're not feeling good, thinking about going somewhere. But I also will plan a whole trip and then hit delete. And that feels really, really good to plan this whole thing out and not pay for it and then delete it. And these are things that we need to do to be positive. And that's probably how I learned what I liked about traveling and stuff. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
Is that like filling in your Amazon cart and then?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. My Amazon cart. I buy the best clothes in the world on sizes that I am definitely not. And I mean, I feel better about it, but you have to do stuff.
Yeah.
And you've got to enjoy life.
Anyone know if there are travel insurance companies that are better than others? Is there anything specific that people use for travel insurance?
I don't remember mine.
I usually just take what's offered when you check out. So I don't know. That was a good point, I think, by Chris, to make sure. I've never thought about that. Make sure they cover pre-existing conditions. So
yeah.
Yeah, just to Mary's point too, having a good trip can leave me on a high for months, it's so, I feel such freedom and exhilaration when I get to go somewhere and experience something new, and it's great. It just, yeah. So if you can travel, do it. It's awesome.
And just planning it and looking forward to something, it really gives a lot of hope, when there's dark days, it's really nice. Oh, September I'm going here, and and just having that, I think we need that. You need that positive thing that you're working towards.
Great.
For sure.
Thank you. Thanks. It looks like Chris put Travel Guard and Alliance.
Oh,
I will add those. I will save all the chat and I will add all this.
I think I used Alliance. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to head out, but thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Great to see you all. Always, please feel free to reach out with any questions, any way that the chapter can support you, that I can support you. Always happy to do that. So hope everyone has a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Too.
Thank you all.
Thanks
This is
so
great.
much.
Thanks again,
Thank you.
Michaela, Eric,
Thank
Mary.
you.
Thank you.